What's up, summoners? King Blair here. We've all been there. We see the flashy new unit using new skills that capture your heart, and then at the end, you see limited time edition unit. And with everything you got, you scrounge up whatever resources and throw it at them to try to get the units. We've done this with things like Seaside Bologna, with Cerise, and with more recently, Fairy Tale Tenebria. But what if I told you this limited unit strategy that Smilegate is using for Epic 7 could in the long term really affect the game negatively and stunt the growth? So what we're going to be talking about today is first, how do companies, particularly gacha game companies, use limited time products to boost sales and why they would want to do that. Then we're going to see how Smilegate themselves has implemented the system, and lastly, why this is harmful to the game, the two things that affected, as well as what can be done to fix it. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server, link down in the description. Right, without further ado, let's get right into it. So first, starting with why do companies like to do limited edition, right? And this is something that we see in all the businesses. We've gone to our local Starbucks and they have the new limited edition drink. If you're a cookie fan like myself, you know that Oreo comes out with the winter holiday special cookies covered in white fudge that are just delicious. And we've seen all these different limited edition things popping around in stores, limited edition jackets, or collaborations. Why would companies want to do this? So it's quite simple, and here's a source to kind of like collaborate with what I'm saying. Essentially, businesses like the limited edition strategy because it creates a larger sense of demand and creates a sense of urgency within the consumer. When you see something is limited, you're more likely and more pressured to buy it because you're like, I want to try it out, or I want to have this, since I know in the future this may not happen. Things like Supreme, who are very, very well off companies that make tons of money, have limited products that they put out, and it has helped the company grow. Now, there are some problems with this strategy that this one doesn't go into as much, but it does touch on. One of the things is that it can frustrate the consumer, or in this case, the player, since it makes them feel like they have to get it and have to get the resources. The other thing that is not mentioned here, but it's more towards the gacha industry that we're going to be slowly transitioning to, is that once that's gone, there is usually no hope for a rerun or something of that nature, and new players will not have access to that if they manage to miss it. So now that we talked about how regular companies use limited products to boost sales and create a sense of urgency for people to want to come in, how do gacha games use it? They primarily use it in two ways. The first one is going to be collaborations and in holiday specific units or products. So we see here, if I just look at Google and limited hero collabs, we see there's a ton of collabs between the different games. We do see Epic 7 here with Guilty Gear. We see it over here and we see it everywhere. The reason why these typically are going to be limited is because it makes the players want to play the game as soon as possible, whether it's the game that they have never heard of or the game that they played and they want to check out this other game where they can see their favorite heroes from a certain franchise. So it does drive a lot of hype and puts attention on the game, particularly because it's only for a limited time. So you're more likely to feel, man, I want to get this unit in this game. Let me download it right now. Whereas if they didn't have a limited event, you're less likely to click on it and be like, super excited about because you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. So it definitely creates the hype and people want to go in and play the game. And that's good, right? That's good for gacha games because that gives the game exposure. It makes people want to go and check it out. Of course, there's also holiday events for the same reason that is done to create hype around the game and drive people to come and play. So now that we know that companies do like to use those limited heroes, how does Epic 7 use it? So overall, they do use the marketing strategy. So you may have seen this in your YouTube videos or in other pages on your browser. I see it occasionally, but Smilegate Epic 7 has created some ads with the most recent winter event with Fairy Tale Tenebria, and they have used her as kind of the poster of like, hey, we invite you to come receive this 5-star hero, get this super cool unit, limited time, and it makes you, and then they don't particularly say limited time, but it does create good ad placement. There are other ads that I couldn't find, but you get to see, usually they do try to hype it up. We can also see it with the GG collab event with Epic 7, where they did a collab and they put the units together. And we see this video has a ton of views compared to other views because of the collaboration. People just want to come in, play those super cool heroes they may have in Guilty Gear, and go on and carry on. So again, there is a lot of reasons why people would want to do limited edition. See, available for free. So Smilegate definitely does use the limited system to their advantage to promote things. The other thing that they do, though, which is going to be where the problems start to arise, is that they typically will make some of these limited event units overly powerful and limited edition. Dizzy, Baiken, all really game-changing units were very, very strong. More particularly, the one that everyone always points to for the summer event unit, Seaside Bellona, is a very strong game-changing unit that players that didn't play during the time don't have access to her. So they really put it behind a gate. They do run reruns every year or so for those units, but as we're getting more and more limited heroes, and sometimes some of the limited heroes aren't even due to an event for epics for Smilegate, like Landy, we're starting to see the pool get oversaturated with limited edition things that may not get reruns in the future, and this will start showing why this could be a problem for Smilegate. So now, why is it a problem that limited edition units are in the game and the way that they are, and in the long run could really affect the game? So there are two things. One is a game balancing standpoint, and the second is going to be a game design standpoint. So first, for the game balancing. Newer players that come into the game do not have access to these game-changing units like Landy and Seaside Bellona. Tons of guides and PvP guides and PvP tournaments use units like Seaside Bellona, Landy, Cerise. I could name a ton of units that are limited that are used at a competitive level. A new player that doesn't have access to this unit, it is inherently at a disadvantage. So if you balance these units or try to nerf or buff these units, you run into the problem where if you nerf the units, the people who got the limited edition are going to be upset, and the people that are free to play that don't have it or weren't playing at the time are going to be happier because they don't have to deal with this limited edition unit that they have zero chance to ever get unless there's a hopeful rerun. And that causes a really hard problem because it turns away newer players from wanting to play the game more invested. So while Smilegate may get that big boost in revenue from people trying to get that limited unit, trying to invest resources into it, long term, newer players may get turned off by the fact that they can't get access to their favorite unit. One of them, even to this day, is going to be Luna. She used to be the poster child for Epic 7, and to this day, she is still a limited unit, and newer players that come in don't have access to her, may get upset and quit the game before they even spend a single penny. So it's one of those balancing acts where Smilegate still needs to create limited units from a business standpoint to sell, to get people hyped for it, and to get the game more hype, but at the same time has the problem of the game balancing because it's a game that is so unit driven that if they make a unit as strong like they have, it will shun out newer players. So that's the game balancing standpoint. Now from a game design standpoint, from the banners themselves, Smilegate, even though it has the limited unit tag, these units do get reruns where the unit is rerun, so newer players do get access to them, and they're typically run around the same time. But when you start to realize how many limited units are in this game, if we just count through a couple of them, we have 1, 2, 3, Holiday Youthfiend, 4, and then the collaboration heroes, 9, Deannie, 10, and we can go on, and as they introduce new units and more limited, we're getting to a point where it becomes impossible to rerun units, which means that there will be one day where Seaside Bellona will not get another banner. In a year or two, she may not ever get a rerun again, which means that newer players will always be at a disadvantage. There's no waiting. There's no chance for you to ever get this game-changing unit. So from the one hand with the balancing issues of limited unit, to the other hand of reruns not being possible all the time, or even things with the newer IPs like the GG collab, there's a chance that the IP is done and they don't want to give them the chance to run it again. They don't want them running the ads with those units. what's going to happen to Epic 7, right? So that's the problem, because now newer players want more limited, strong units. Older players want the old units that they never got access to, and you can't do everything, because if you're always rerunning, it doesn't feel limited. And then you just feel like, what's the point of having this? You know, it creates a very bad scenario. And this is something that can be very harmful to the game. In the long run, as more new heroes are introduced and as new limited heroes keep coming in, it's going to get oversaturated with limited heroes, which means they will truly become limited. But when they're game changing, like units like Dizzy and other units like Cerise or Fairy Tail Tenebria, you can't go back from that, and you can't have newer players, and you're stunting the growth of the game and capping it and making it difficult and putting a barrier to entry that normally wasn't there. So what can you do, right? Or what can we do? What can Smilegate do? Because they really are putting themselves at a bad situation. There are a couple things they can do, and it gets hard because of the way that they promote the limited heroes, and there could be loss attached to that. But the big thing is going to be that for their own IPs, so the things like Seaside Bologna and Landy, in the future, after maybe 1 to 2 years, they may want to consider to adding the hero to the limited pool. This would take away the limited status, which could be case for potential lawsuits because they advertised something that was not true. But we see it a lot in regular companies. We've seen companies where a product was just selling so great and they decided to make it long term, similar to like the Popeyes chicken sandwich. You know, it used to be a limited time, now it's sold all the time. So it's not something that is not unseen, and making a unit after a certain period of time not be limited anymore could be fine. Players that got them at the limited time got the mileage out of the certain unit, and if they just put it in the general pool and take away the limited status, you know, that could be nice, right? For everyone involved, for the people, the new players and the older players, they can get more copies and things of that nature. So that part would make it a little bit nicer, kind of like a pseudo limited. The other thing that they can do is when they rerun units, they can give players an option for what limited units they would like to go for. So they could have, for example, for Christmas, they could pick one limited hero that they want to be able to pull for in their particular banner. This would make it so players have the option to get some of those limited heroes while also we're introducing the new heroes and still keeping their limited status. This would make it so newer players know when a unit is going to get a rerun and can just wait for when that time comes and save up towards it and then be able to get their units of their dreams, right? So that way it still generates the hype of a limited hero and allows them to add on. Overall, and the last one would be to stop introducing limited heroes, which is not likely to happen, or stop making them as strong. When you think of things like Holiday Euphine, she's not game breaking. The fact that she's limited is not that big of a deal. People aren't clamoring for her. People aren't upset that they don't have her because she's not OP. But then Smilegate wouldn't be making as much money. So making not broken limiteds doesn't work from a business standpoint, although it would work from a balance standpoint. So with everything we've discussed, we know that Smilegate will continue to need to use limited units for ad purposes and for revenue. But the limited status is going to hurt the game in the long run if they didn't have the limited status. They have several routes to try to fix it, taking off the limited status of certain units, or just introducing units that are limited that aren't as oppressive. The choice is theirs, but there will be something that needs to be done about this, because as new players come in and start to realize that some of their heroes aren't going to get reruns, it does create a lot of hardship. But that is all I have for you guys today, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.